No, I'm just trying to imagine. This whole thing started because you asked yourself, what if I can shoot in Ghim Moh public toilet?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Every time it's a strange thing, it always happens in the toilet. Like 3/4 of the time. The second thing,
What
the
has
second thing
happened to
is
you,
that
Sean?
Uncool is produced by Creators at Work and Story Machine.
Before we tell you about this week's uncool thing to do for this month, here is something else that you should check out. This exciting workshop about how to harness the potential of AI and Web3, covering topics that touch on how to understand and utilize AI tools to building new spaces, new brands, and new worlds. This specially curated workshop dives into the exciting world of AI and Web3 to empower you to push boundaries. It takes place from November 17th to the 19th, so scan this QR code to find out more. For our audio-only listeners, you can search for Empowering Creatives on Eventbrite.
Like this show? Then rate it 5 stars and subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Uncool is a podcast produced, written, and hosted by Sean Lee Win Cheong and co-hosted by Yen Ling Low, co-produced by Raven Lim, and edited by Ray Ng. Uncool. It's cool to be uncool.
you know, sometimes on Uncool, we feature an uncool thing to do. And I think as far as uncool things to do goes, right, this really fits the bill, okay? Making a film.
Yes, because we all know that making a film is never easy. But when you're charting your own costs, free from the constraints of traditional movie financing, it becomes even harder. In fact, I think it fits the bill of being super uncool.
So on this edition of Uncool Things to Do, we'll be speaking to Tsai Hong because he's doing exactly just that. And with what's this film called? We Can Save the World. Okay, I love that title already. I love that title literally.
Yeah, this feels very, very uncool indeed.
Yeah, because a lot of people feel that things that are uncool actually turned out to be kind of cool in the end, right? Things that in the past people didn't like to do.
It's like what do you call it? A geek culture. Like for a long period of time, like I was a geek and nobody thought geeks were cool. But today, geeks run the world. Techies run the world. But okay, anyway, so We Can Save the World. It's a story about a disillusioned government worker whose job is to go clear out rough sleepers and homeless people from the neighborhood he works at. On one of his nightly patrols, he comes across this particular homeless man as he's trying to run him off the streets, right? This particular homeless man comes up to him and tells him that he's an extraterrestrial and that he tries to bargain and weasel his way out of things. And he tells him, the government worker, that there's a doomsday device on Earth in Singapore and he needs his help to find the device, disarm it, and save the world. So that's the full story in a nutshell.
I can so imagine the cross genres. It's like you have extraterrestrials, you have bombs, and then things are going to explode. And then on the other hand, you have reality of those vexatious people who refuse to do as they are told and argue the authorities, saying they're like sovereigns and so on. So imagine all this mishmash coming in. With no offense to those people who really believe they're sovereigns, of course. But so is that how this idea came about, Chayong?
The idea came about, I think, okay, when you speak about that, right, I think comes what I'm going to speak about in terms of describing how the story came about. There is like a very clear, superficial way of describing it. And then, but the story that all those points that you just described, the story thing, right? It actually just comes from all of us as Singaporeans, as people growing up in this very rigid environment there where there's so much structure, life is like constantly telling you that you need to do this, you need to do that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And I think all those things are my lived experiences. So that sort of bleeds into the story. On the very superficial level, the story came out of this idea of restrictions of I don't have a lot of resources. As a Singaporean filmmaker, as a Singaporean first-time filmmaker, if I wanted to make a movie that I really believed in, a comedy I really believed in, I might not have nobody will have that, honestly. Nobody has the kind of resources to play with where you can just do explosions wherever you want. You can do any kind of cinematography, any kind of locations. So I worked around it. I went, okay, you know what? Since I don't have all those things, how do I tell a story, make a movie that will make sense, that will still look good, that will work? I can work around all the limited resources that I have. So the analogy that I love telling people is that I had this idea, this make-believe scenario that I told my producers that if you guys came up to me and you told me that, dude, child, I have the Ghim Moh Hawker Center toilet, the public toilet available for some dumbass reason, I have it available. Would you want to use it? Any sane director who has a sane story has an idea of what kind of story you want to tell. I might say, you know what? Obviously, no. Like, why are you even coming to me with this? Like, you know what the story is about. Like, I don't need Ghim Moh Hawker Center's toilet. But then I went, okay, but what if I had a story that could go, oh, you're gonna seriously give me the public toilet for like maybe 2 nights? You know what? Let me do something with that. Let me see if I can change the scene. I can do some work, have fun with Ghim Moh Hawker Center's public toilet.
No, I'm just trying to imagine. This whole thing started because you asked yourself, what if I can shoot in Ghim Moh public toilet?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
For real, I'm not even kidding. I just went, let's just have fun. Like what? Like, I mean, it's movie making. We're not trying to save the world in a literal way. Like I'm not a brain surgeon. Let's just take it wherever we want to go.
So what happened next after that?
The story that came out of that was this whole idea that okay, in order to make this work, the larger philosophy has to be about everyday Singapore, the sights that we see as Singaporeans. You're walking on the streets, all the landmarks that any Singaporean can point to and go, I recognize that. I know what that's about. I think I know what it's about. Park pavilion is a park pavilion. A park connector is a park connector. A hawker center toilet is a hawker center toilet. But what if there's more? What if the story brings you on a journey where you walk into a hawker center toilet, you follow someone there, and then you think that you can corner a person there, and then you step in the toilet after the person, and no one's there, and you realize, oh my god, like there's a path, there's a tunnel here, there's a pathway to some hidden underground bunker here, and this is the entrance, and then you go tap on that disgusting soap dispenser that no one ever touches. It's like filled with grime. It's contains some like very suspicious looking like green soap. And then you tap on it, and then stuff opens up. One of the toilet cubicles opens up. The wall opens up. Maybe the floor lowers into this secret underground bunker. And suddenly, like the world becomes a bit stranger, a bit more fun, a bit less Singaporean in that sense. Yeah. So then the story turned into, okay, what if there are extraterrestrials? What if there were conspiracy theories? What if there were like underground doomsday cults? What if there was a clandestine government agency that was set up specifically to monitor extraterrestrials? There, of course, there haven't been many. Hence, this government agency isn't very well staffed, isn't very well budgeted. Hence, they are a bit like koya.
Is this how that story started out then?
It is. It actually is. It didn't start with aliens. Actually, it started with all this. What's beneath? Like what kind of nonsense can we get up to that Singaporeans might think they already know, but actually don't really know? But then we can just play make believe.
Freelance Creative Exchange has undergone an exciting rebrand. We are now the Freelancer Nation podcast, your go-to destination for transforming your freelancing journey. Discover more at freelancernation.asia. That's freelancernation.asia.
Okay, so like two things come to mind, right? Number one is that there's always something. Every time there's a strange thing, it always happens in the toilet. Like 3/4 of the time. The second thing,
What has happened to you, Sean?
No, and the second thing I'm thinking about is that in my mind, I'm just thinking, right, somewhere along the line, you must be thinking this is a budget issue, man, because if the weird place was like taking place in like a street in the Shangri-La or something, there's no way you're going to be able to afford that. So let's choose a public place that is free and that I don't have to pay a location fee that's going to cost me an arm and a leg.
Exactly, and that's a joy.
So I'll come back to the film later because I find that this is incredibly interesting. But do you always think about your films in this manner? Like, this, like, I just look at this occasion and this is, and you get these wild ideas.
I'm always very curious about how other filmmakers' processes work, because I'm actually curious about how the process works for yourself, like both yourself, like both of you. Like, and I know Sean is also a film and media professional as well, a director and writer yourself. But for me, it's always a case of I love working with restrictions. Like, I mean, who doesn't love working without restrictions, right? But I find that for myself, the best ideas, the ideas for that tend to come a bit more organic to me, that I actually find fun, come out of just lack of resources, lack of all this. We have all this. We're just playing around with constraints. Because with my previous project, there was a web series I did called Neighborhood Watch Task Force. A big part of the idea actually came out of going, okay, I want to shoot a lot of stuff, a lot of material. Where in Singapore can I shoot the most material without getting in the way of everyday Singaporeans, without paying too much location fees? Then I can really do whatever I want. I'm like, HDB void decks. So it's just the first level of HDB, Singapore HDBs, and then I build a story from there. And then basically I just went around, when in the shooting process, when we went location scouting, right, all we did was find the best neighborhood to shoot in. So we ended up going with Jurong West, and literally after a while, the construction workers knew us, the old ladies and old uncles who worked out every day in the morning at 5 a.m. They knew us and they loved us. They would offer to buy us food. They would know that, okay, the camera's pointing this way. They'll just get out of the way. And it's very sweet, and it really was like a okay, there's construction going on here right now, so the visuals are not that nice. Let's move to another part of the neighborhood. It's just surrounding the entire Jurong West neighborhood, just in the void decks.
So it became more like it became really like a community project, right? More than anything.
Yeah, and it's very sweet. Like it's really in a real way bringing people together. Not in a way. I mean, we all want the final product to bring people together, right? But just the shooting itself brought people together in a way that I didn't expect. I'm diverging from the topic. So yes, that's very often how I think about things.
I love this way of how you came up with this concept of having something very familiar to a lot of Singaporeans, a lot of people who have lived in Singapore, and taking it and breaking everything down about it and just saying, no, it's no longer going to be familiar from or not going to be what you expected out of it. But I also want to know what you think about, because I think this is something that a lot of Singaporeans, when they're thinking of making a feature film or they're thinking of who their audience is going to be, there's this struggle for a lot of people is, I want to make a film for Singaporean people. But we do know that Singapore is a very small market, right? But we want as many people as possible to look at it and be able to relate to it. So how much of that went into your process of creating a story, making it familiar to Singaporeans? And did the other side of the coin ever come in, which is, how can I bring this film to people outside of Singapore? Or did that even just cross your mind at all?
Oh no, I think this crosses my mind like all the time. In the conceptualizing of the story, in the conceptualizing of the execution, how should I mean, it's comedy, but there's so many different ways to do comedy, right? There's so many ways to tell the story. So first and foremost, love that question. And love how you set it up for me. Because right, in the making of the movie, I think very, you know what, I'm gonna start by first throwing a question, not a question, but then sort of like a mini gripe I have that is a concern, but as well as something that that I just have to, so all Singaporean filmmakers have to deal with, which is that when I started thinking about the story, right, when you look at all the filmmakers that you love overseas, the South Korean filmmakers, the American filmmakers, the Italian neorealism, the French new wave, I suspect at some point, at no point in their careers were they ever asked, how will this movie travel overseas? And I have a suspicion that sometimes that thought process, when applied to Singaporean films and Singaporean filmmakers, does set us back a bit in terms of constantly thinking, okay, how will this story go overseas? Because at the end of the day, culture is something that comes from within. Like all these movies that we love about from US, from Hollywood, from South Korea, from Japan, they are a window to their cultures. they never, I don't think like any of these filmmakers, I don't think Bong Joon-ho has ever asked, even when he was struggling at the start with his first and second movies, right? He was ever asked, how will your movie reach foreign audiences? I think there was always of course, there's a pragmatic reason for us asking ourselves that, like you mentioned, that we have a very limited population size, and even within that population, you have all sorts of like divergent groups, and how do you reach all of them, right? So with that, I actually thought about it, and I went, you know what? My answer is, I will do whatever I can to make sure that the story is as universal as possible. It's as human as possible. That is what will allow the story to reach overseas audiences. But beyond that, I'm going to focus on what makes this story true to myself, true, honest to Singaporeans, honest to the people that I rub shoulders with every day when I take the bus, when I take the MRT. This story should be true to these people, because these are at the end of the day, I'm making a story in Singapore. Let's say we don't take out the part of the equation where I'm making it for Singaporeans. I'm a Singaporean. I live in Singapore. I'm making a story in Singapore. The end of the equation, the equals, right? After you multiply, divide, do differential equation, you equals. It's Singaporeans. It should be a story for Singaporeans. And if it reaches overseas, all the better. So then, of course, the question is, how do I reach these people and like as many Singaporeans as possible, right? Then after it's down to, it's not like we can talk about philosophy all we want, but at the end of the day, it's all about execution. So then my approach is that I've experienced a bit of working with comedy, thinking about writing funny material. But at the end, and a lot of times, right, what I realized about comedy is that, and I think lots of people have realized, a lot of masters have realized, is that it's always physical comedy that crosses boundaries, because you don't need to, because language, as much as we like to romanticize it, right, that, oh my, good storytelling should cross all boundaries, right, all language boundaries, right, that will always be a barrier as for when it comes to comedy, because there are so many nuances there. There are so many. If it's verbal comedy, it's all language based. It requires people to understand the nuances of a language. And let's be real, Singlish is a very hard language to understand for most people who are not Singaporean. So even just Singlish, just the whole idea of mixing up different languages, that's like screws most people's minds up. So then my answer was to focus on physical comedy. Like, think Mr. Bean, think Stephen Chow. These are all like the physical comedy grades, right? Where it's like really quality, well thought through slapstick. It's good, it's slapstick, but it's not poor slapstick. It's not like low hanging fruit slapstick. It's like slapstick that makes you go, wait a minute, this is dumb as hell. This is dumb as hell, but the thinking, making it dumb, takes a lot of thought and careful curation. So I wanted to really focus on physical comedy to do all those things that I just described.
So, Child, everything that you just said now, I think it makes sense why it's in the toilet, for one. But more importantly, I think you said Mr. Stephen Chow and then Mr. Bean style comedy, right? So, is that what we can come to expect from this film?
It is. Think Stephen Chow. I think physical comedy in a Singaporean context. Singaporeans are funny bunch. Honestly, Singaporeans are so dumb. Like so many of the things that we do and say are so dumb that the moment you take like 5 steps back and watch someone who's just going about their lives in a pub, right? It's funny. It's so many things. But the problem often is that our lives are so busy that we're always like this close with another person. We don't get to appreciate life from afar. We don't get to zoom out and chill out. And you will realize that, you know what, we are actually a really, really funny bunch. And sometimes all it takes is just me putting a camera on people. And I believe that I'm not even doing much. Honestly, as a director, sometimes I think, no, why should I be interfering? Like, get out of the actor's way, right? And the actors in this case being a lot of like Singaporeanisms. Let's watch. Like, I love watching Singaporeans. I really want to have Singaporeans enjoy watching themselves outside of caricatures, outside of just everyday, very honest living. And there's a lot of joy in that.
So, you've been working clearly on this film for a very long time now. Can you tell us about the process where you are right now in this project, for example, and how did you get to this point?
Okay, so right now we are deep into the financing phase. The script has been written and is ready to be shot already. We did a little teaser trailer we shot a little teaser trailer for the purposes of financing and funding. So we are planning to shoot the film by April 2024, and then after that, hoping to release on like a super speedy edit process and release by August for the entire National Day period.
So Chai Hong, you mentioned that this is your first feature film. And you have done, what you were doing, and comedy has made people laugh. You were successful in it. So why change now? What made you start with the feature film? Or you and your team?
I think this is where I start to, romanticize it a bit, because I've always felt that, and I still feel that way, like in that movies, especially the kind that brings audiences into the theaters, into a darkened room, where you can really feel each other's energy, you can laugh together, you can cry together. I think that kind of long form storytelling that everyone gets to experience together as a crowd, as a group, that does so much more than short form storytelling. Because what I genuinely feel like, I sometimes I question myself, am I being very very old manny about it? Am I being very boomer about this sort of reminisce about the past, that cinema is an institution that really does the most for civilization, and social media is a bane of all of us, a bane of society kind of thing. Like, am I being like that? But I genuinely think no, because I do appreciate short form content. I do think the world of social media has opened the world up so much more that the thing that people love to say is, today on social media I can go on TikTok and view content by an Eskimo, by Alaskan Inuit, and find out about what life is like there. But at the end of the day, when it comes to pure storytelling that engages our imagination, that makes us realize that life is more than it is. Storytelling that engages our senses, that we can walk, because at the end of the day, we're Singaporeans, right? If you're a New Yorker, you're a New Yorker, but within the context of Singapore, you live, breathe, eat, sleep in Singapore. You're not, no matter how much content you consume from overseas, that's not going to change your lived every day, the very tactile experience. When we don't have the opportunity, and which is what is happening in Singapore right now, that we don't have the opportunity to enjoy stories that are from around us, that illuminate the people around us, illuminate the members of society around within our vicinity, that it doesn't engage our imagination within the confines of our own reality, right? That's why I romanticize it a bit, that I still look forward to doing that for at least the people around me lah. And hopefully more people can get to see that, and then tell stories that are just show Singapore in a different light.
And which leads us nicely into the uncool thing to do on this episode, which is you can support this film in the Indiegogo and help Chai Hong get this film out with some support through various means, funding, for example. Maybe you can tell us, why did you choose this path to get this film off the ground, and how else can we help you?
Our brief history with between Singaporean filmmakers and Singapore audiences in general, right, is that we're not sure whether Singaporeans actually want to watch Singaporean shows. We're not sure whether Singaporeans will ever be truly interested in Singaporean movies, Singaporean storytelling, in the way that they're interested in Hollywood, in Marvel, in all sorts of Hollywood tentpole production, South Korean cinema, South Korean waves. So most Singaporeans, our views are very outward facing. Part and parcel of being a Singaporean. You know what? That's how we grew up with. I'm not going to complain too much about that. But then when we want to make this movie, right, we really had to honestly ask ourselves, okay, we want to make this for Singaporeans, right? Do they actually want to watch this? That's a big question. And we have no answer other than doing little things like, A/B testing, by taking it step by step. So the first step for us was to do a crowdfunding teaser trailer. So basically, it's our way of making sure that we have good marketing and that it comes in phases. Right now, with a crowdfunding campaign, even before we make the movie, people know about the movie. Their influencers, friends, family, people who already have supported the movie in small ways. But at the very least, this seed has been planted. The hope is that by the time we actually finish making a movie and go on a large scale marketing campaign, we don't have to cover as much ground as compared to if we didn't do all this at the start. So the crowdfunding, getting audiences involved, it really is about making sure that, giving them audiences, Singaporeans, fellow Singaporeans, stake in the movie. They have a stake in the story. They have they buy in. They buy into this whole narrative, and they would want the story to succeed in every way as well. So that's a direction lah. And I have no idea whether this will work. The only thing I can say is that this hasn't really been tried before on such a scale. So at least if we try it and it fails, the next guy or next girl can know that, what, maybe this doesn't work. And just don't follow in my footsteps.
So optimistic, child.
When I look at your Indiegogo like now, right? You have like 80 people have supported you. Hopefully there'll be a lot more when it comes to the closure. And I wish you more success to get to your target. But how does it feel right now? Like, do you feel like stressed? Got 80 stakeholders to answer to.
Damn stress. So on the flip side, 80. So right now 80, right, is actually there's a multiplication. So the 80 people who have purchased stuff. So but a lot of those are like, it's like maybe 50 times 2 or like 20 times 4 because they purchase like a single perk which has multiple tickets. So I'm saying this because yes, the answer is yes, there's stress because it's actually way more than 80. So it's like a few hundred, I think 1,000 plus right now. If my math hasn't failed me last time we counted, it's the kind of thing that I have to be comfortable with it because at the end of the day, if the movie really goes on to hit the kind of goals that we are hoping for, it's gonna be way more than that 1,000 plus people anyway. And sometimes what I do to calm myself down is that, at the end of the day, the people are buying into this. At least the people have bought in so far. They're buying into this because they've seen the stuff I've done before, and they think, okay, this guy can make me laugh. I'm providing some value to their lives. Then, if that's the case, I should just simply carry on doing what I'm doing, and not think too much. Don't overthink it. Make sure that I'm the first audience as a director. I'm the first audience point of contact as an audience. And if I think this is funny, then I'm putting the film out there and going, guys, I think this is funny. Would you all please laugh at it?
So to clarify, it says you have 80 backers, but actually the number is a lot more. Because I was about to ask you how many of the 80 were your mom and dad and your family, but I think now at 100 plus, we can safely assume that it's not just your mom and dad and your family that supported Indiegogo.
Interestingly, my mom and dad have not supported it yet. It's one of those very Asian things, right? That I'm very comfortable with reaching out to like friends, maybe one point of contact after friends.
Yeah, one
but then
degree away,
people
right?
closest to you, right, are like the people like the parents, right? The Asian parents who have watched you grow up and frowned upon my choice of career at every point. Even though they are very supportive now, I'm hesitant to ask for more.
That's why when you were saying that, my thought process would be the parents saying, "Oh, 养你养到那么大了, so I brought you up until this point already. That should be enough. Then go ahead and do what you need to do. Good luck, son. Go."
There's a saying that goes, you never do business with your family and your friends. And I guess that makes sense. And on that note, if you want to support the Indiegogo of China, you can scan this QR code that you see below. For our audio-only listeners on our Spotify and Apple podcasts and so on, you can check it out on the episode descriptions below. So, Chai, this goes on to the end of November. What can your backers expect if they support you?
So right now, there are several tiers in terms of backing the campaign. If you back the campaign, I really wanted to get anyone who supported the campaign, right, to really be a part of the movie. So if you go on a campaign, you will realize that if you back up to certain amounts, right, you can actually shape the movie to a certain extent. For example, there's a tier where you can change the name of one of the supporting characters. When you when you support a movie up to a certain tier, you can change the credit, the font size of your name in the credits. I just wanted people to mess around with the movie because I'm messing around. I'm having fun. Like I want you guys, if you support it, to join in the spirit of just messing around. Like, and I mean, one of the very, very high tiers that is admittedly a bit unachievable unless you're like a wealthy multi-millionaire is that if you go up to like $10,000, right, you go ahead, change one of the main characters' names. Tell me what name you want to change it to. Then I welcome the challenge of going, okay, so you want to change your character's name to like to I don't know, butt face.
Hey, it's happened
like-
before. People change the fingers names.
Damn it.
Giving ideas,
Yeah, so-
Simon.
And I think that creates a different layer. Yeah, creates a different layer of like audiences engaging with movie.
Yeah, that's right. So when you support We Can Save the World, you're not only supporting it in the monetary sense, you are actually making your mark on the movie itself. There is the opportunity to do so. So you have to check out the Indiegogo and dig into your pockets a little bit and see how you can get a few tickets and make your mark.
So it starts from $25 and it goes up to 10,000.
Yeah. What you're describing. Everything else you can read on our website. I shouldn't describe
And in
anymore.
all tiers, you get your names in the credits. So I look forward to seeing 10 minutes of credits of just names coming through all your backers.
And we'll make the credits entertaining as well.
Okay,
That's my
we will
promise.
look forward to 10 minutes of animated, interesting credits that will go on to thank every single backer of Chayong.
Hopefully it's 10 minutes. If we honestly, if we hit 10 minutes, we've had a really successful campaign.
We hope for that. We hope
And
for
a
that.
bigger challenge. Okay, so maybe you can give us a few words, maybe 3 words, to tell us why we should support We Can Save the World and why you chose those words.
Okay, the 3 words I'm thinking of right now are empathy, joy, and connection. I think empathy because I think at the end of the day, the story We Can Save the World, it's a story about empathy. It's a story that at the start of the movie, you have a protagonist that thinks that saving the world is about big things, about grand actions, about climbing the career ladder, and then to achieving being someone as opposed to doing something. And by the end of the story, we realize the protagonist realizes that saving the world, it's not about all these grand actions, grand plans. It's about helping the person standing right in front of you, even if he happens to look like a homeless man and he's telling you that he's an extraterrestrial. And to me, that's what saving the world really is about. It's not about all those big things. It's about empathy for the person in front of you. So hence, empathy. Joy, because like I keep mentioning, I think at the end of the day, right, life is meaningless. And it will only have meaning if you do something about it. You put effort into it. You just go out and strive and try to do something with your life. That's what brings meaning to all our lives. So, and for me, I think I would like to bring joy to people in small ways. Whether they laugh or not, that one's up to them. But then at the very least, there's the small things of just having fun. At least if I can't make you have fun, at least I'll let you watch me have fun so that you can live through my experiences. And connection. That for the longest period of time, I've always felt that for myself when I make movies, because I've done lots of like short films that are very conceptual in nature, that are very high-minded. But at the end of the day, if I ask myself when I embark on this process of making a movie, I ask myself, what am I making this movie for? And because it's not to earn money, right? Like if I wanted to really earn money, I would have gone into another career. And I thought about what do I actually care about? And I think what I really, really care about is about connecting with people. I love having like long conversations about thoughts, about ideas, about the world, about how we can have more fun and like make everyone's lives a little bit better. And that's something I care about connection. So hence the movie is about connection. It's about connecting the filmmaker, myself as a director, the kind of story that I want to tell with audiences. It's about connecting the audiences as they watch it with one another. Because with social media today, right, better people than me have theorized and written lots of literature on this topic. But I really feel that we are lacking in the modern world, right? We are lacking that little bit of a connection with the people next to us. I'm guilty of it. The tiniest things where you finish work, you go home, you just keep doom scrolling on your phone, and then you don't connect with your parents, and then your elderly parents, you have limited time with them. You don't talk to them. You don't talk to the person next to you. It's that lack of connection that I'm hoping we can save the world will help mend a bit. Yeah. So hence empathy, joy, connection. Let's go.
So on that note, Chai Hong, we're bringing it full circle, and we're gonna ask you this question that we ask every one of our guests that comes onto our show, right? You know, our show is called Uncool. So can you tell us, when do you think you were the most uncool, and what would you say to that person if you had a chance right now?
Was I ever cool? I feel like I was never cool. Hence, like my entire existence is uncool.
So what do you think you'll say
So
to
that's a tough
yourself
question.
then?
That's the tough question, not because I think I'm cool. So by that definition, if I'm uncool all the time and I've never ever been cool and I never will be cool, technically I'm just giving my advice to like current day me, like just whenever. So my advice to the very uncool version of me: do whatever you think will be right and trust that you'll keep walking, and at some point the path will open up.
So thank you so much for your time, Chai Hong.
All the best for your project, and let's look forward to it next year. Once again, if you want to support his Indiegogo, you can check out the QR code in the description below. Just give him some support because it's cool to be uncool.
The Indiegogo for We Can Save the World runs until the end of November, so check it out now.
Like this show? Then rate it 5 stars and subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Uncool is a podcast produced, written, and hosted by Sean Lee Win Cheong and co-hosted by Yen Ling Lo, co-produced by Raven Lim, and edited by Ray Ng. Uncool. It's cool to be uncool.